Listening is obviously a critical piece to healthy conversation. And healthy conversation is how we love well. You think about all that Jesus did, and it was all built around conversation. Um, 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 3 says, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. The one who thinks they know something does not yet know as they ought to know, but the one who knows God is loved by God. Love that. Knowledge puffs up. Jesus wasn't just the answer man, the God answer man. He didn't go around just um, giving lectures and then leaving, telling everyone what he knew. He engaged in conversation with people because that's where they felt the love. People don't want someone to simply give them the answer. They want someone to give them attention, to give them interest, to engage with them. So we talked this week in the sermon about 3 levels of questions. Now, generally speaking, you want to remember some general guidelines that in asking questions, which Jesus asked a lot in the Gospels, he asked over 300 questions. That's a lot. Jesus was a person that used the Socratic method, the method of learning through asking questions, not giving answers. So Jesus' lifestyle would tell us that probably asking questions is more important than giving answers, because he asked a lot more questions. He got people thinking. In fact, oftentimes they would ask him a question and he'd answer with a question. So let's think about some just general guidelines real quick. One is open-ended questions are better than closed-end. Open-ended gives people a chance to wrestle with a concept. A closed-end is kind of usually a yes or no, and it doesn't create much depth and it doesn't create conversation. It just stops the conversation. So if I want a healthy conversation, it's got to be two-way. Another thing is to recognize kind of the journey that goes from private to transparent. All of us have to usually work up to transparency. We're not easily transparent. So you build up to that. And lastly, all quality conversations have a lot of nonverbal components. In other words, what I do nonverbally sometimes speaks more loudly than what I do verbally. Okay, now we talked about 3 levels of conversation or questions. So the first level is that invitational level. The invitational level is really about general information. It's about who, what, where. Example could be, tell me about yourself. Who are you, right? I'm asking an invitational question. I'm inviting you into relationship. Invitational questions ask things that empower someone to speak easily and reveal readily things about themselves. So, in doing the invitational level of questions, which is huge, Jesus was always inviting people into relationship. And so, an invitational question would say, come on, I want to know about you. Tell me about your 3 things they're experts on. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your hobbies or interests. Tell me about your job or work. Those are things everyone can talk freely, openly, with authority about because they're the expert on those things. You're with someone and you want to move it from this kind of awkward place to a place of free flowing information. Ask an invitational question. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family. Where'd you grow up? What do you love to do? Tell me about your job. How'd you learn to do that? Wow, what's the most challenging thing you had in your occupation? What's the most difficult thing you had to learn? What's the hardest situation you've come to in work? When you talk and give someone an invitational question, it opens up and creates the ability to trust. To trust. I guarantee you, no one has ever concluded that they were loved by someone who wasn't interested in them. No one has ever concluded that they were loved by someone who didn't show them interest. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 says, consider others' interest more important than your own. Kind of clearly, he's saying to make that shift, to consider their interest more important than my own, I'm going to have to consider that. I'm going to have to make a shift to do that. For you and I, if we want to engage people in a conversation that moves us to a place where we can love well because we learn to trust one another, it'll start with an invitational question. This week, today, practice it on someone you love. Invite them into greater disclosure. Or maybe someone you don't know very well. Invite them into greater disclosure. I guarantee you, if you do, they're going to feel the nuances of what love feels like. And you will move forward in loving well. God bless.